Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am your host, Chris Daughtry. Coming up on today's show, we're going to look at Alabama's remaining schedule and if they really have a shot to make it into the college football playoffs. But first, I want you guys to go ahead and like today's video if you want Alabama to make the playoffs. I think everybody that should be watching this video should be liking it because I would assume everybody wants Alabama to make the playoffs. We're just a couple hundred likes away here from taking over our September like number. So if you guys want Alabama to make the playoffs, make sure you guys like today's video for me right now. The Week 10 AP poll came out the other day, and Alabama has moved up only one spot after that blowout win versus Missouri this past weekend from number 15 to number 14, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Missouri was so banged up in that game. You didn't really garner a lot of respect from the AP voters, but at the end of the day, the AP voters aren't the ones that determine who gets into the college football playoffs. It is that college football playoff committee. So we'll see what happens here, just in a couple of days that first ranking is going to come out. We'll go through the AP top 10 here real quick, though. You got Oregon sitting there at number 1. Georgia sitting there at number 2. Right now, I think your win over Georgia is probably the best win right now in college football. Maybe you could argue, Oregon beating Ohio State a couple weeks ago, but I mean, honestly, I think that win against Georgia was more impressive than what Oregon showed against Ohio State. And then you got Miami sitting there at number 5. They've been a really fun team this year with Cam Ward. Texas sitting there at 7. They had kind of a struggle win this past weekend against Vanderbilt, but look, at the end of the day, they got it done and they got the win. Tennessee sitting there at number 7. Notre Dame at number 8, BYU at number 9, and then Texas A&M after that comeback win against LSU this past weekend, they're now in the top 10. Alabama now sitting at number 14. You got Clemson at 11, Iowa State at 12. Indiana's been a pretty fun team this year so far as well. They had game day this past weekend. They're sitting there at 8-0. But Alabama's sitting there at number 14. I really do think Alabama has a very good shot of making the college football playoffs this year. But I do think they have to be perfect the rest of the way, or, I really do not think this season. I think eventually a 3-loss team will make it into the college football playoffs because, there is going to be a team one day that, plays, 3 top 10, top 5 teams. It's going to happen. It's happened before, and they end up dropping all those games. But at the same time, they are still probably one of the top 12 teams in the country. So I do think it'll happen one day, but the way everything's kind of shaping out in college football this year, I do not think a 3-loss team will make it into the college football playoffs. So let me know right now, guys, at the pinned comment, do you think Alabama, right now as it sits, will make it into the college football playoffs, first year of that 12-team playoff? Let me know at the pinned comment of today's video. Type Y for yes or type N for no. That ad probably going to come right here on YouTube. That's totally fine. You can ignore it. Go down there to the pinned comment and let me know what you guys think. All right, looking at the ESPN FPI playoff chances here, Miami, Oregon, Georgia, all those guys, I definitely think they are going to make the college football playoffs. We'll see what happens with Penn State. They probably got a pretty good shot as well. Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, Tennessee. I think out of those teams, really the only team that, might have a shot of missing it, honestly, right now. Maybe Indiana and Tennessee. Just kind of depends how they perform the rest of the season. But, man, if Tennessee loses another game, Alabama wins out, you got that head-to-head, matchup if both teams only have 2 losses. Unfortunately, I would assume the playoff committee with that head-to-head win for Tennessee over Alabama, I would assume that they would make it in, over Alabama. Right now, though, Alabama is sitting at a 53.2% chance to make it into the college football playoffs per ESPN's FPI playoff chances. So, honestly, right now, I think that's about right. I think you really got to win out the rest of the season to be able to make it. Because like I said a second ago, I do not think a 3-loss team is going to make it into the college football playoffs this year. And with Alabama's remaining schedule coming up, really, the biggest threat, I think, for Alabama to get that 3rd loss is going to be that Week 11 matchup versus LSU. Now, if you go in there and win that game, that's very, very good for you. with your strength of schedule, that's another, ranked team that you could end up beating. But look, Mercer, they obviously, Alabama year after year, they beat Mercer, but they're still 7-1. So if you go out there, lackluster like you did against Vanderbilt, that's a team that I'm not going to say that they can beat you, but man, you do not want to look bad against them. And then who knows what can happen against Oklahoma on the road there. I'll be honest, I don't even know who their quarterback is right now. They've been shuffling through quarterbacks, so crazy so far this year. And then Auburn. I mean, look, they're an absolute trash, dumpster fire, garbage team this year, but it's the Iron Bowl, so you never know what can happen. And if Auburn comes into Bryant-Denny Stadium, if they come into Tuscaloosa and they beat you in Kalen DeBoer's first season, I might have to jump off a bridge if that ends up happening. So you know what? Look, Alabama has everything in front of them right now. I think if they win out the rest of the season, I think they definitely make it into the college football playoffs. LSU, we have the time now and the channel for that LSU matchup, and it will be a night game, 6:30 Central Time, November 9th on ABC down there in Baton Rouge. So it gives LSU fans, a chance all day to go out there, get hammered, and they're going to be very, very rowdy for that game down there in Baton Rouge. So, I got a little bit more faith in the defense right now after the, last week's performance, but we'll see what happens with the offense, man. The communication, it gets really loud there. We kind of saw what happened, in that Tennessee game. Whether or not they piped in crowd noise, I guess we'll never know. But at LSU, there is no reason to pipe in crowd noise there because those fans are absolutely rowdy. We'll see what Alabama can do here in just a couple of weeks. So let me know. This is your opportunity once again to get interactive with our show today. Who you got? Type A for Alabama or type L for LSU. I think, there's probably going to be a couple thousand people watch this video. I would assume there should be a couple thousand A's in the comment section for me right now. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor of today's show. That is Game Time. Game Time has a new feature now called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks is just curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to the start of the event. So if you're just going down to Baton Rouge to tailgate and hang out, because that is a blast if you've never actually gone down to Baton Rouge just to hang out before a game. If you decide last minute, hey, I want to go to the game, you can do that last minute on Game Time. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will actually credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time has all-in prices. You toggle this feature on, and it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout, like, some of these other ticketing apps out there can get you with. They also have seat views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so, you know exactly what that seat view is going to look like. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today, create an account, and redeem promo code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Check out GameTime.co for last-minute tickets. Terms do apply, but again, create an account and redeem promo code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. That link will be in the comments section and the description of today's video. Download Game Time today, because what time is it? It's game time. Look, I've got a lot of confidence right now in Alabama after that, performance that they put up against Missouri. I think one of the things is you're still kind of struggling with the offense, really getting those guys going. Whether or not Jalen Milroe's injured right now or not, I guess we'll really never know. Apparently he told the TV broadcast, that he was completely unaware that there was this narrative out there that he was playing banged up, which, considering, we've shown the graphic before when he did the first 5 games versus the last 2 games outside of this past weekend versus Missouri, there was definitely a regression there. So, we'll see what happens with the offense coming up in that game against LSU at LSU. Going to be a very, crazy environment there. The communication has got to be on point. You definitely saw some different times where, some of the receivers, I remember specifically Jalen Milroe just, out and out. It was a bad throw to Ryan Williams, we thought originally, but then you go back and you watch the TV broadcast. Kalen DeBoer specifically, you can read his lips pretty clearly. He says, Ryan, you got to turn out on that. So really, it would have been a good throw if Ryan Williams ran the right route. So honestly, Alabama right now, they have everything in front of them. They can go out there against LSU, put up a dominating performance. We saw, that they could not stop the run there in that second half against Texas A&M. Hopefully, Alabama's offensive line, they seemed like they really had the fire in their ass this past weekend, really getting after it. And the run game really started to heat up. So maybe that's something that they can really, utilize in that game versus LSU. I will say this, too, about Alabama's playoff chances. This year, in the first year of the 12-team playoffs, they're going to take the 4 highest-ranked conference champions. I think right now, Alabama's going to be out of that conversation. You're sitting there right now at number 6 in the SEC. Texas A&M, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, and then Texas are all ahead of you right now in the SEC standings this week. So, you're probably not going to get that automatic bid and the bye, but they are, the next 8 highest ranked teams are going to be the ones that make it into the college football playoffs. So I definitely think you have a very good shot of making it, as one of those 8 teams. Maybe you even get a home playoff game. That would be absolutely electric if Alabama had a home playoff game. And really, going into the season, that was my expectation, is for Alabama to have a home playoff game, and honestly, just to make the playoffs at all. That was my expectation for Kalen DeBoer's first season here with the Crimson Tide. Now, Peter Burns of ESPN tweeted this out after LSU was, blew that game against Texas A&M, and he said Alabama at LSU on November 9th will now be a college football playoff elimination game. I would argue last week versus Missouri was really first elimination game for Alabama. After you lost versus Tennessee, I didn't really see any path for a 3-loss Alabama team to go in and make the college football playoffs. So if, you lost versus Missouri, you're still not going to make the playoffs either, which obviously you went in there and you did get that win. But look, I would argue that after you lost versus Tennessee, every game the rest of the way is a college football playoff game for Alabama. So, I kind of disagree with this. It still rings true. It is still an elimination game for both teams, but really, I think it more rings true, for LSU if they would have beaten Texas A&M last week. But Alabama's going to be fighting for their lives the rest of the way out. So let me know in the comments section again right now for me, can a 3-loss Alabama team make the college football playoffs this year? I think they don't if they end up losing another game this season, but it is a democracy here at the Alabama Football Report, so let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Type P if you think a 3-loss Alabama team can make the playoffs, or type M if you think a 3-loss Alabama team will miss the playoffs. And I do want to give credit to this team. They looked very good this past weekend against Missouri. Sure, the offense was kind of shaky, but that fire was absolutely back. You saw Tyler Booker out there, pancaking guys. The blocking from the wide receivers was really good. And it just, at the end of the day, you saw this energy from this team that you really haven't seen since like the first quarter of that Georgia game, probably. The defense was absolutely lights out. They definitely shined in this game. But I do also think you have to take a little bit into account. You could praise the defense and talk about how good they were, but you also kind of have to qualify it with the fact that Missouri was banged up out there. Their starting quarterback tried to go out there, and at the end of the day, he just was not healthy enough to really make an impact in that game. Then they had to throw Drew Pine in there, and Drew Pine's just trash. I mean, let's just be honest. That first interception to Malachi Moore was just a god-awful throw. But look, at the end of the day, you saw a difference with their run defense, and you also have to take into account that Missouri leading rusher Nate Noel was also out in this game. Their number 3 wide receiver was also out in this game. But I was very afraid that despite all of that, they were just going to throw the ball and say, F it, Luther Burden down there somewhere, go get it. And they held Luther Burden to only 3 receiving yards, and I think it was like 18, total yards for Luther Burden because they had him, run the ball a couple of times as well. So, I mean, they were absolutely all over, and it was definitely something that, the defensive backs have, kind of been up and down this year for Alabama. So, overall, I think they did play a very good game on defense. We'll see what happens with the offense coming up here in a couple of weeks. And like I said earlier, the College Football Playoff Committee is the only ranking that really matters. And that first ranking comes out here in just, a week from now. We got a lot of things going on November 5th. You got the NFL trade deadline. We got the election coming up. And you also have the College Football Playoff Committee putting out that first College Football Playoff rankings. So we will see on November 5th. Who's going to be our new president, who's going to be on what team in the NFL, and we will also see, it'll be our first chance to see who is, how the College Football Playoff Committee really views Alabama after their first, few games here of the season. They got 2 losses. Maybe, we'll see. It'll be before that LSU game, so we will see kind of what standing they have for Alabama here in just a couple of days. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed. We will be off this week for the bye week, of course, but then Alabama versus LSU. We will have a watch party for that, and I'm even thinking we're going to try to do a little 50-50 raffle on that. So do not miss out. Make sure you guys are subscribed right now. That's youtube.com/@RollTideTV.